Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about the next big PlayStation game because it just leaked. Yeah, Sony's been kind of quiet to my own annoyance, but there has finally been some details about what they're actually dumping just millions and millions of dollars into, and it is, unfortunately, another live service game. But let's talk about it because it does feel like from the initial leaks, the first gameplay, the first screenshots, people are being surprisingly positive about this. But let's discuss. Hi, hope you're having a great day. And if you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So I know the fact that Sony is busy. They are doing stuff. There is talks about the fact that they're about to buy From Software. A lot of the employees over at Kadokawa and From Software seem to be incredibly happy about this acquisition. But I have been a bit annoyed about the fact that Sony isn't really doing their typical thing. I feel like a lot of times what PlayStation has done best with the PlayStation 4 generation specifically is they've done a really good job of taking a victory lap, of bragging about their successes, about talking about upcoming projects and stuff. And this time around with PlayStation 5, they have been so incredibly silent. They've done so many remasters and remakes, and they've done a lot of live service stuff, some of which have been successful and some of which not so much. Well, apparently the next big game that is coming out that they're actually really gearing up for is a Sony-bent military PS5 shooter. Now, this is kind of bizarre for a couple different reasons, but let's start off with what the source of this is. So it is definitely 100% legit. The website MP First published a bunch of screenshots, a bunch of videos and stuff. Apparently what happened is an employee that's working over at Sony Bend, who specifically works on UI UX, essentially, the parts of the game that are the menus, where your button prompts are, your health meters and stuff like that. He's been working on that. He published a big portfolio about what he's been working on, and it has lots and lots of details about the game. Now, I want to give this website credit because they did not publish the employee's name. I hope this guy doesn't get in trouble. Clearly, he's proud about his work, and he isn't, he's not trying to get in any trouble. He's not trying to get fired or whatever like that. But I'm going to talk about the screenshots without showing them because I don't want to get this video taken down. But if you want to see this, it's very easy to find. But let's start by talking about this, and then let's take a look at a lot of the very surprisingly positive reactions about it. But from this, we can tell that it does seem to be a live service game. There has been a bunch of listings over the course of the last 2-ish years that Sony Bend is doing a mass hiring spree to get people prepared for a live service game. Now, we've talked about this in other videos, but live service is very different from a development perspective than just a standard single-player game where you make it, you do some layoffs, you scale down. Usually you make the game, you give everybody a big, huge bonus, and then go, okay, we're going to scale down again and then retool and figure out what the next project is. Where with live service games, you got to hire a huge team and then keep pretty much the entire team to perpetually make content forever. They're not firing the Fortnite team because they always got to be working on Fortnite. Well, apparently this guy's portfolio shows the fact they've been working on this since 2022. There have been some leaks talking about this all the way back in 2022, where apparently some leakers said it's essentially Metal Gear Solid 5 meets Splinter Cell, where you get missions and you get to approach that how you want with stealth or guns blazing. That's very interesting. But according to the leaks and what we see in the screenshots is a bunch of stuff that really conveys the fact that this game is going to be big. It's going to have customization for making your character look and wear what you want, ranking systems, modernized weaponry, so it is going to be a current day military shooter, and it's got hints of a crafting system and an XP based ranking system. So even from this tiny taste, it's interesting because it is the developers behind Days Gone. Sony Bend has made very big maps, but I think sometimes people forget their legacy is actually more based in shooters than anything else. In fact, they even mentioned that here, down here, one of their first games that I played that a lot of people played is Siphon Filter. In fact, what I decided to do is right before filming this video, I went back and played some Siphon Filter Logan's Shadow, or is this Dark Mirror? But I like all the Siphon Filter games, and yeah, the controls by current day standards are kind of clunky and they're not exactly smooth because they were made before we even had two joysticks to play with, but I really appreciate these games for how fun they were, how great they were, how good the graphics were, especially for the time. And more than that, they were fun. They were actually exciting, and they had full-blown multiplayer. Even 20 years ago, they had full-blown multiplayer that allowed you to go online, to go against other players, to actually do takedowns. They had disarm systems, they had deathmatch, they had exploding weapons and stuff like that. They definitely understood the concepts of a fun multiplayer game, even if it wasn't always the most well balanced. But I want to take a look at a lot of the reactions to it because I pulled up stuff from the PlayStation 5 subreddit and the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit, and both people seem to be surprisingly positive about this because it does almost seem like it might be more like an MMORPG. Think about like The Division, where The Division is a third-person shooter, but it has a leveling system, it's got a gear system and stuff, so you can't just bulldoze around the map. You actually have to grind and level up and defeat bosses and stuff like that, and it gives you a chance to explore deeper and see cool stuff. Now, I never played that much of Division 1 and Division 2, probably like 60 hours total, but I know a lot of the Division fans have loved that. It would be interesting if Sony essentially stepped in and just copied their flow bar for bar. But I think it's interesting because people are thinking, what if this has an element like Halo or Gears of War, where it has a big single player component and additionally a multiplayer component, which could be pretty good. A lot of people are basically saying, okay, if Sony announced it as SOCOM, it'd be a massive, massive thing. But if it's any other game, we'd consider it live service slop. A lot of people are basically saying, okay, if this is SOCOM, I'm happy. If this is Siphon Filter, I'm happy. But if they're doing another one right now, I just don't think it's going to be a success. Until a few years ago, Sony is the last AAA game maker that every dev wanted to work for, and now they make games with live service BS. How the tables have turned. Oh, a military shooter, it will be interesting. Also, people complaining about it being live service. Concord didn't fail because it was live service. It failed because it's not interesting and it was ass. Helldivers 2 was successful in it being a military shooter, could make it more like COD. So I think this is an interesting dynamic. I do think the failure of Concord is because the game blows. I mean, it absolutely sucks. I don't think it's because it's, too colorful or the maps aren't big enough. It is because the game just sucked. Whereas Helldivers 2, another game that had a $40 upfront cost, still has hundreds of thousands of concurrent players. I am curious to see how successful a purely shooter game can be, right? A live service game with possibly another $40 upfront cost, if it is just going to be a couple maps and missions. I mean, I really do feel like scope comes down to it. Depending on how big it is, how deep it is, how fun it is at launch, I feel like the biggest sin that a lot of live service games make now is launching with like even 70% of your total idea done. A lot of companies, I've had a chance to even talk to some developers personally one-on-one, and they say, oh, our game failed because we launched it and we thought, oh, people will buy it and they'll give us feedback and then we'll flesh it out. We'll come up with more ideas to make it bigger and better so that more people will want to play, but nobody bought it day one, so we didn't get that feedback, so the entire game collapsed. I think a lot of live service games kind of overly depend on the fan base to finish it for them in a conceptual sense. Now, I want to take a look at the PlayStation 5 Reddit. So again, Sony been working on a new IP, screenshots surfacing online. People are like, okay, if it is SOCOM, let's not start the hate trait bandwagon until we see what it is. SOCOM days were the best. Third-person military shooter, you have my interest. Already a few comments trashing it. We haven't even technically seen it. Toxic ass community. Live service doesn't automatically equal bad, but a lot of players can write it off immediately because they're not interested in the genre. Now, I feel like this is a perfect thing to end with. They're not interested in the genre. I find this comment to be utterly fascinating because Until even about, I would literally say until about a year ago, I would not have considered games as a service as a genre, right? I would consider it just a subset of it's a game, it's an MMORPG, it's a role-playing game, or it's a shooter, or it's a grindy farming game or whatever. It would be that, but it'd be also live service. Whereas now, the fact that people are thinking of live service as a separate genre of game, I think that is the biggest sign about how live service is, in a lot of cases now, a death knell. I think a lot of times now people instantly think, I don't have the time, the money, the care, or even the will to grind endlessly in another project. I'm already playing this live service or that live service. It is now a genre that is not just flooded. I feel like it is already dulling in its hype. The idea originally of playing a game forever, that was enticing. It's fun, the idea that you can just always log in. New surprise, new update, new seasonal event, new skins, new crazy stuff to play with your friends. That was originally so fun, but the more this games as a service genre continues to blow up, the amount of these games that completely fail and flop on their face at launch, the more I think people are starting to say, I don't care, and why should you? But these have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. What do you guys think about the future of PlayStation, and what do you think about these live service games? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Oh man, this is weird. Hopefully this game is good. Hopefully it's SOCOM, but I'm more skeptical than most. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.